Hi everybody, my name is Matthew Thompson and my project is called The Relationship Between Payroll and Winning Percentage in Major League Baseball, a Multi-Year Regression Analysis. This is a table of contents page. We're going to go through background, is salary cap needed in MLB to enhance parity? Then we're going to look at the research and methodology, data cleaning and linear regression. Then we're going to move on to the conclusions. If you spend, you win big. And then I'm going to just run through references at the end. Okay, background. Is a salary cap needed in MLB to enhance parity? Major League Baseball is the only one of the four major U.S. sports leagues without a salary cap. The NHL, the NFL, and the NBA all have salary caps. Major League Baseball is unique in not having one. How bad is the disparity? In 2022, the Los Angeles Dodgers spent $270 million, while the Baltimore Orioles spent only $44 million. And for reference, this is it is extreme. I think it's of the 10 years that I looked at, this is the most disparate in the lowest spender and the highest spender. But on the other hand, it is on par. From 2013 to 2022, the gap between the highest and lowest spending team was over $2 billion 5 times, and at least $1 billion every year. The lowest point on this graph here is 2020, which I think is an anomaly because of COVID, and spending was actually down that year because it was a shortened season. Okay, so some argue against having a salary cap in baseball. This is the article that I chose to focus on, and there is an ongoing debate. Should baseball have a salary cap? So Matt Snyder wrote an article for CBS against it. He focuses on snippets of data to measure success, number of championships, the percentage of teams that make the playoffs, etc., while missing the big picture. Is it possible for a small market team to maintain success over time with no salary cap? Snyder also leaves basic data comparisons out of his article. Spending is nearly 7-to-1 from big market to small market teams. In my experience in this discussion, I think you can use data either way to justify your argument, but I think when I see articles like this, they tend to look at very small pieces of data to justify not having a salary cap. So here's a bigger picture. This takes the total spending for each team over the period 2013 to 2022. And it shows you how much total they have spent. So we have the Miami Marlins here on the left, and they spent only $694 million over that 10 years, while the Dodgers organization spent $2.4 billion. And the league average over that time was $1.26 billion. This is an error here on my part. Only 13 of the 30 teams in the MLB spent more than the league average. So you can see both the disparity between the top team and the low team, and you can also see that not even half the teams are spending the average. So you have a lot of teams on the lower end, and that just goes to show that the smaller markets don't have the capacity to spend. Okay, getting into the actual meat of this project, the research and methodology, data cleaning, and linear regression methods. Data sources and cleaning. I utilize publicly available salary data from spottrack.com. I think that's how you say that. This data conveniently also contain the team's winning percentages in the same table. So some of the data here was not as valuable, and I dropped it. But I was looking at win percentage and in this column here, and then the total payroll column. I couldn't find an elegant way to to pull this data down, so I had to manually copy and paste. It was a pain, but in doing that, I ended up with this CSV with cleaned or more one-step cleaner data here that I could use. And then I just did this year over year. So we have a year column. I had a team ID key just in case I needed to use it. I think I did use it in my loop that I did. But I did all kinds of things and I don't exactly remember. So to clean and manipulate the data, I used a combination of Excel and R. Key data points, as I mentioned, I were looking at our win percentage and total payroll, where the X's are a year between 2013 and 2022. For the methodology, rather than focusing on the outliers, low payroll teams that do well anyway, I chose, and I feel like I mentioned that because that's typically what those articles are about. It's like, oh, this team didn't spend a lot and they're good anyway. That's amazing. And I think that's kind of featured in Snyder's article. Anyway, so rather than focusing on outliers, I chose to use a more comprehensive figure, winning percentage over time. I decided that a data set of 10 years would be a sufficient start in analyzing win percentage versus the total salary paid. I don't think I could have handled much more than that in terms of manually copying and pasting and trying to get the CSV to work. When I first started analyzing the data, I was looking at the whole pool of data, but decided it would be more valuable to look at each year's data separately as well. To accomplish this, I used a loop. And I wanted to do this because I think the more you look at, it's like I wanted to look at it comprehensively to show data over time, but I also wanted to show that like every year we see this. We see an extreme disparity between one team spending 5 to 7 times as much as the smallest team. So here's a screenshot of that data cleaning methodology, and that's largely to remove the any commas or dollar signs in that payroll data, and converting it to numeric so that we can use it. This loop is finding all of the years in that loop, and then the loop itself for each year in the unique years it runs through, and basically does a linear regression model on each of those years. This goes into more detail there. After the code loops through each year and produces summary statistics, it creates summary statistics for the entire data set as well. I wanted to not only do the year over year data, but have statistics for the whole 10 years as well, to just show that on average it lines up as well. The code adds the combined summary statistics to the last data frame and then completes an R-squared check down here. And then finally, I exported results to a CSV to try to make them easier to paste into the final report, because pasting results from the R console is not fun when you're dealing with a table. And I had limited success. I think it was a little bit easier, but and then the conclusions of running this model: if you spend a little, you win a little, and if you spend a lot, you generally win a lot. As for the results themselves, the coefficient for the total payroll variable is an exponential number here, indicating that 1 unit increase in total payroll is associated with a small increase in win percentage. I should have translated that, but I did not. P-value for total payroll variable is 0.00841, which is less than the significance level, indicating that the variable is statistically significant in explaining the variation in win percentage. The intercept coefficient is 0.42812. Represents the expected win percentage when the total payroll is equal to the mean total payroll of approximately 125 million. I had to do something in the code for it to look at the mean. I don't know if this is featured on the screen or not. But it basically just, it wasn't valuable to compare to a salary cap of 0 because that's not a valuable data point. So I had to look at the mean instead. Standard error for the intercept coefficient is 0.01. 85415. R squared value of 14.424 indicates that the model explains 14.42% of the variation win percentage. This suggests that there are other factors beyond total payroll that affect win percentage in Major League Baseball, obviously. Nonetheless, the model provides evidence that total payroll is an important factor to consider when discussing team success in the league. So I think, on the whole, I was not incredibly surprised. There were some years where the R squared was pretty low, only 5%. There were other years where 42, 43% is a very strong correlation. So I would like to look at a larger data set if I can down the road to see how things line up year over year. I kind of outlined that here. I think studying a larger data set of salary data would provide an opportunity to strengthen this research because I think it would be consistent over time. I think at the base level, it makes sense if you have more money to spend that you would assemble a team that is generally more talented. And further useful methodologies, I did want to do some of these things, but I just did not have time to do so. Further scrutiny of just how much the winning percentage is correlated with total salary as it rises would be helpful. I think what I mean by that is looking at individual teams year over year. If they spend more, does a team's specific winning percentage increase as well? And I would also think that segmenting the data into buckets, so like if you took the top 10 teams spending over time and then compared that winning percentage to the bottom 10, I would expect that those statistics would hold up as well. But that would be interesting to look at. Here are my references. I used cbssports.com for that Snyder article, SpotTrack for the data. All of the photos in this PowerPoint were found pxhere.com, and this template was downloaded from slidesgo.com. About me, I'm a senior informatics major at UAlbany concentrating in data analytics. I hope to continue my education in the information science graduate program. You can reach me at MatthewBaker Thompson at gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry it was a little long.